had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also, they're a literal vampire. And suddenly, my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 790 of DBR Podcast, Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans, Donald Wine, here to join you. It is a fine Sunday morning, 10 a.m. I guess the key question all across most of the United States is, do you have power? Are you buried under ice and snow? Donald, how you doing up there in Washington, my friend?
We're doing great. We've got about 4 inches of snow overnight. It has switched to sleet. For those of you who have not done this before, if you have a driveway, when sleet starts, you shovel. Don't wait until the sleet falls, because then that sleet becomes ice, and ice is much more difficult to shovel. But yeah, I'm just been working here. Jason, we have power, obviously, so we get to do this pod. But all in all, everything's good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, down here in Atlanta, it hasn't gotten too bad yet. We had a little bit of the freezing rain overnight. I had one limb fall off a tree and land on my deck, but it doesn't seem to be too bad. It was a fairly small limb. Still have power down here in Atlanta. I guess everything's going to be okay, at least at the moment, but there's still bad stuff to come. And we don't know how it'll affect travel for example, Duke's game against Louisville on Monday, which we're going to do we'll chat a little bit about that a little bit later. Our primary purpose here, though, Donald, is, of course, to talk about Duke's game against Wake Forest yesterday, a contest that the Blue Devils win by the score of 90-69, 21-point victory for Duke. It was a game that, Wake got out early, but I don't know about you. I never felt all that worried. It didn't feel all that much in doubt. This was a very, very impressive win by the Blue Devils. Let's start, as we always do, with the headlines. I got a few. Actually, before we get to the headlines, I did want to mention one thing. Mm-hmm. Sorry, just really quick. I guess I knew in my head that it had been a long time since Wake had won at Duke. I swear I thought that maybe it happened once during the Randolph Childress years or something. I don't know. Maybe that was longer ago than I thought, but the fact that Duke has won 27 consecutive home games against Wake is crazy when you think about the fact that Wake Forest is a pretty good program. They've had some really good teams over the years. The last time Wake Forest beat Duke in Cameron, Carlos Boozer was still in high school in Juneau, Alaska.
Yeah, I think that was, when did Randolph Childress graduate? He was like 95, I want to say. This was, I think, 97 was the last time Duke lost in Cameron. So it was around that time. But yeah, it's been a while. There's been obviously a lot of close calls. Wake has had some very good teams over the years, some very good players come through Cameron. So again, when you start this game out, Jason, it was like, oh, okay, like Wake's coming to play. And we didn't expect anything less. But once Duke woke up and they took over.
Yeah, let's get to the headlines really quickly. As I said, I got one from Dave Jordan. We had a few of these that played off the notion of a wake. Dave Jordan
in more ways than one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Dave said, the Duke powerboat trolls out slowly, then leaves the Deacons in their wake.
So I have one from John Lee, and Jason, you already know this one was difficult to do.
Oh, this is so good. This is
so great. Duke's devilish defense downs Demon Deacons and Durham Daylight Demolition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words that start with D in this one. John Lee, you get an A+ for that alliteration.
Yeah, really impressive. The only other one I had was Abby Reeves, who's playing off the weather a little bit here. She says, Duke thaws out at the end of the first half as dominant defense downs Deacons. She gave us a little bit of weather, a little bit of alliteration. Nice job, Abby.
And the final one I have is from Jim Baumgartner. Again, Jason playing off that 27 game losing streak that Wake has. He just wrote simply, Wake can't shake Cameron Demons. Very, very simple.
Exactly. I like it. I like it. I want to start as we get through the good with some comments from Jon Scheyer in the postgame, because I think they are worth highlighting. The first thing I wanted to note is that the very first comment he made, unprompted, first thing he said was he talked about the game that Maliq Brown had. And he said Maliq had given the team a lift. He said Maliq's game was perfect. He used that word perfect, other than one thing. The only complaint that Jon Scheyer had about Maliq Brown was that there was a 3 in the second half that he thought Maliq should have shot. He's like, I wish he'd taken the second half 3 the same way he took the first half 3. Clearly he was terribly impressed, as was anyone watching, with Maliq Brown's game. Maliq is a guy who does it without putting up stats. Like when you look, he has 1 steal and 1 block. You're like, oh, that's a defensive player? No, sorry. Dude had octopus arms in this game. He was I wish Duke keeps track of deflections. Duke, I am begging you. Duke Sports Information, please start releasing the deflection statistics. We need to know how many deflections Maliq has every game. Why are they hiding this from us?
Well, they do, right? We've seen him a couple of times, but it's only when he gets over 10 deflections. That's when they usually put it in their report. So I guess he needs like double digits. Must be the threshold to include it in the post game release. But we want to see it all. And Jason, real quickly, I think with Maliq Brown, he normally has games like this, but I think what made it in the eyes of Jon Scheyer, quote, perfect, is the fact that it was demonstrative. Usually he's just behind the scenes kind of doing this. You're like, oh yeah, Maliq Brown sneakily had a good game defensively. He just quietly locked down his opponent. This time he was much more demonstrative in his defense, and even on the offensive end, there was a couple of plays that he had where you're like, oh, Maliq Brown caused that play and Maliq Brown finished that play. We love to see that from him because of all the games where he has those quiet demeanor type of performances. It's cool every now and then to see him just show that he's the beast that he is.
Yeah, by the way, Maliq missed out on a 10-5-5 game because he didn't score enough. That's crazy. Yeah, his passing was ridiculous. His rebounding was great. I wanted to note that if you combine, so Pat and Maliq, Big Pat and Maliq, combined to play 40 minutes exactly. I think they overlapped by like a minute or two because one of them wasn't in there in the final 2 minutes when Duke put in the really, really deep bench. So they overlapped a little bit, but for the most part, they alternated, and so Duke had 40 minutes of center in there. Our center combined on the game for 18 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, and only 1 turnover.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, that's a pretty good game. That's a pretty decent game from your center, almost a triple-double from the center position for Duke. And as I get back a little bit to what Jon Scheyer was saying in the postgame, he literally said he never thought that Duke would become a smash mouth team, but we absolutely were in this game. And he was like, shooting layups and getting dunks is a lot of fun. He talked about the fact that Duke was just so dominant on what we were able to do inside. And that's where I want to go next in the good. Duke owned the boards, absolutely owned them. 43-22 is the final rebounding number. We almost doubled them in rebounds. Duke had 16 offensive rebounds. Wake only had 16 defensive rebounds. So it was 50-50. When the ball went up, even if Duke missed the shot, and we didn't miss a lot of them, there was a 50% chance that Duke was going to get that rebound. As a result of that, we win second chance points 18-7. We win points in the paint 48-16. I want to repeat that one, people. Duke won points in the paint 48-16. We won it by 32 points. Now, Duke was not playing, this wasn't Duke against Army or Duke against Lipscomb or something like that, or Western Carolina. No offense to those programs, but you know that those kind of programs are going to have trouble matching up with Duke's size. Duke was playing Wake Forest, a legit power conference team in the ACC that has NCAA tournament aspirations and not unreasonable aspirations at that. And Duke crushed them, destroyed them on the boards, destroyed them in the paint. Wake's biggest player, Cooper Schweiger, had a grand total of 2 rebounds in this game, Donald. No one, not a single player for Wake Forest had more than 3 rebounds. Meanwhile, Duke, Cam has 9, Maliq has 8, Pat has 7, Nick Hamenia has 5. And it all showed up. I know I'm rambling on. I'm going to let you in a second. Let me get through all the numbers, and then I promise. It all showed up, by the way, in our 2-point field goal percentage. Duke hit 65% of our twos in this game. Wake hit just 36% on 2-point shots. And look, Wake's 6 offensive rebounds meant that they offensive rebound just 18% of their missed shots. It's the second lowest offensive rebounding rate by any Duke opponent this year. The only team that was worse was Lipscomb. Duke's 50% offensive rebounding rate, our offensive rebounding rate of 50%, was our second highest on the year, only against Lipscomb. Basically, Lipscomb is the only team where we were better rebounding than this game against Wake was our game against Lipscomb. And again, no offense to Lipscomb, but Wake is just a different caliber team. For Duke to have done all this against a team as good as Wake was just super impressive on the boards.
The thing about this game that was slightly different is this, with our dominance in the paint, it wasn't at the expense of shooting threes, right? Like against Stanford, it was a Stanford where we only took 10 threes and we dominated the paint. We just basically said, hey, we're not shooting a lot of threes. We're getting a lot of stuff in the paint. We're just going to keep going with it. We still were able to get stuff done in the paint despite shooting 25 threes. And it was, again, a little bit more of a balanced attack, but once we went inside, we realized, okay, if we're not going to make these threes, that's cool. We're still going to try and take them when they're open, but let's get inside. Let's get to the paint. Let's do that. And the funny thing is about Cam Boozer, who owned the paint. I mean, he had 32 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals, and 22 of those points came in the second half. But a lot of it was, okay, I'm in the paint. He's dominating. Then there was a point where he'd get the ball, he'd shoot the 3. He'd either miss it or make it. More often than not, he made it. So he'd make 1 3, and all of a sudden the defense is like, okay, now I got to guard him outside in the 3. Then hammer time again. He goes back in the paint and starts dominating again. I think that the balance of what they showed on the attack really allowed them to be so forceful inside the paint, because every time they got the ball inside the paint, it's almost like they took it personally. They took it as a motivation to, hey, it's almost like, Jason, when you have, a good day at work, you come home, you have a nice meal, and you say, you know what? I'm feeling good. Let me get my dessert. The paint was the dessert, right? If we're working hard on all these other aspects of the game, and when the ball got into the paint, everybody's like, cool, treat time. And they go to the basket and they took what was theirs. And I think that what was great about this game is that, again, everyone was assertive in the paint, but it wasn't at the expense of balance attack on the offense.
You mentioned Cam's big game. This is now back-to-back 30-point games, 30-plus point games for him. He missed having a 10-5-5 by 1 assist. And you're right, he absolutely had his way in this game. Now, I am going to say, I thought he settled for threes a bit too much. Like, he took 8 3-pointers in this game. That's way more than usual for him. He had 9 against Florida. He had 9 against Western Carolina. But mostly, you see Cam taking like 3 or 4, maybe 5 3-pointers a game. And I'm fine with him taking as many as he did. He was he was our best 3-point shooter in this contest. It wasn't a very good game from 3. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I obviously his bread and butter is still in the lane. It's the 2-pointers. He was 8 of 12 on his 2s, which is, hitting 2 out of every 3, and that's 66.7%. Coincidentally, on the season, he is exactly at 66.7% on his 2-point field goals. And I wanted to, sort of get back a little bit to the offensive rebounds, of which Cam led the team with 4. Thanks to all those offensive rebounds, thanks to Duke's super efficient 2-point field goal percentage. I mentioned we were 65% on 2s in this game. Even though Duke didn't have a very good game from 3, this was our 3rd best offensive game in terms of efficiency of the year. It's kind of stunning that in a game that Duke, frankly, didn't shoot very well from 3-point range, we had such an efficient offensive game. The only games that we've been better on offense than this game were against Niagara and Army. And honestly, when you adjust for strength of opponent, this was far and away Duke's best offensive game of the year. We average 1.39 points per possession. That's outrageous against a team. As I mentioned in the preview, Wake's a good defensive team. The thing Wake does best is they are top 50 defensive team. At least they were before they played Duke. It's really impressive that we were able to put up 90 points relatively easily against a good defensive team like Wake Forest.
I want to talk about one thing that I think really made it where this game felt comfortable very quickly. And you mentioned in the preview that Wake has a tendency to do what? Allow teams to go on a long run. Well,
kill shots, baby. I got a whole thing on kill shots. Go for it, and then I'll go. Go.
Well, this one was different, Jason, because again, our kill shots have normally been slow burns lately. It's not like when we have 13, 10-0 run in the span of like a minute and a half, where before you know it, the other team's calling timeout.
Right.
It's usually a slow burn over like 5, 6, 7 minutes where you kind of look back and go, oh, wow, like we haven't held them. We've held them pretty tightly the last few minutes. It's been pretty good. This one was quicker. This one was a point where it was a combination of Wake Forest, I think, going like 9 minutes without making a basket, and us in the span of like what felt like 2 minutes going on a 13-0 run. And it was just, again, this was different than previous ones because it was so fast how we were able to do it. It was predicated by our defense. We had a lot of sequences that started with steals or just great defensive stances where we were able to force Wake into a bad shot and go the other way. But again, they took advantage of it where they had their fast breaks. They took advantage of that. They got 9 points off the fast break. As you mentioned, we took advantage of rebounding, forced them into a bad shot. We got most of the rebounds in this game, so we were able to get that. And then we had quick outlets to guys on the sidelines going the other way, and those guys all of a sudden could get down the floor and get buckets. And then I think we were also feeding guys in the positions that they love the most. Going on these runs, it's about getting, Cam on the block. Okay, when Cam's on the block, I think the only person stopping him is a clone of Cam Boozer, right? That's not lining up against us. When you get the ball to Pat right by the basket, easy dunk. Get it to Maliq by the basket, easy dunk. Caleb Foster driving the lane, kicking it out to Nick Aminia, who passes it to, a wide open Slim. Okay, he's hitting a three. Like those type of plays are things that we do best. And in this run, the reason why it was so quick is because it felt like every time we got the ball and we were able to take advantage, it was to a guy in his favorite spot on the floor where he was able to inflict the most damage. And because of that, the points racked up super quickly.
Yeah, the run you're talking about was in the first half. It started around the 7-minute mark or so. It was a 13-0 run. It's Duke's 22nd kill shot on the season. A kill shot, of course, is a 10-0 run. It was Duke's 22nd kill shot on the season, this 13-0 run. And the thing you really noticed, and you pointed this out, was the way Duke's defense put Wake into scramble mode. That you just felt like Wake was utterly discombobulated. They were like desperately trying to just even get off a shot. And it was at a time in the game where Duke had been struggling to score a good bit. And I think that the fact that we got some of the steals, as you mentioned, we got some open looks because Wake was scrambling so much on offense, it leads to good looks on defense, at the other end for you. It causes them to scramble on defense as well. And so it leads to some good looks. And I think that Duke started to see the ball go through the basket. And then they were like, oh, wait, that's how, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's how you score. And suddenly it became a lot easier. And then we also had it wasn't technically a kill shot because Wake, I think, interrupted it twice, but we had an 18-4 run in the second half. That was over about an 8-minute stretch. And I'm almost certain all 4 points that Wake scored in that span were scored at the free throw line. That Wake didn't see the ball go through the basket at all over about an 8-minute stretch. And this Duke team's ability to put teams into scramble mode and then convert that strong defense into instant offense is something that just makes them super, super dangerous. If you're an opponent, you've got to be unbelievably concerned when Duke starts to get into that kind of thing, because we crushed. Wake was very much in this game. They were hitting threes and they had a lead, and Duke shrugged it off so quickly. And for Wake, it was such a struggle to even get off a shot. It was a struggle to prevent Duke from getting an easy shot and then to prevent Duke from getting offensive rebounds, and they just failed at that completely. It flipped the game so quickly that run in the first half, and then again the run in the second half made it so that the game was allowed. The game was a 20+ point contest for almost the entire second half. It's fun to watch if you're a Duke fan, but man, it is. I can't imagine if you're a Wake person. Just like I think at one point Steve Forbes called 2 timeouts in like a minute and a half. He was just like, "This is getting away from us. Got to call timeout." And he's like, "Nope, still getting away from us. Got to call another one."
And it was like, they had just come off of a TV timeout. So it was like, okay, in the span of, a 4-minute stretch, he called 2 timeouts and there was 2 TV timeouts bookending it. And you could tell that he was just running out of answers for how to do it. But it's almost because, as you mentioned, Wake likes to give up the kill shot. And, those 10-0 runs are things that Duke does. But it was coupled by the fact that Duke almost had a reverse kill shot of their own. Like Wake would go 7, 8, 9 minutes without making a basket. And it's very difficult to win against anybody when you are going up against defense that is not allowing you to get shots at the rim, take your open looks and to knock them down. Because as you mentioned, it just takes a couple of times for you to get, you saw in the second half when Duke Harris saw a couple of those shots fall down, he started getting a little more confidence.
Yeah.
We put that to bed, right? Because once a team just cannot see the lid on the jar open, it frustrates everything else about the team, frustrates every aspect of the game, and you could see us take advantage of that with our kill shot. So it's one thing to have the ability to do that, and also Duke, didn't rely on that as well. There's been times where we've kind of relied on, hey, we'll go on this 10-0 run and we'll get back in this ball game. This time around, they kind of brought it upon themselves. They forced the issue. They said the kill shot's going to come because we're going to make it happen through our defense.
One of the other things John Shire talked about, the last thing I sort of took a note in the post-game press conference from him was he talked about how connected Duke was on defense, and he's really pleased that Duke has kind of gotten back to the kind of defense we were playing earlier in the year. We had a little run, and I've talked about it on this podcast of really, really bad defense, about 3-4 games. It was like 4 out of 5 games that Duke had really poor defensive showings. But John talked about the fact that he feels like we're getting connected again on defense. And part of that was the first half defense on Duke Harris. Because honestly, again, props to him for what he did in the second half. But I'm not going to say the game was decided at halftime, but you had a pretty good sense of how this game was going to go. And it was because Dame Sarr specifically, along with a couple other guys, because Duke's constantly switching on defense and such, but held Duke Harris, Wake's star player, 20+ point per game guy. He had 3 total points in the first half on 1 of 3 shooting. He couldn't do anything. And look, on the whole game, Duke Harris gets 23 points, but I'm not sure if you noticed, Donald, they kept him in late, playing against the Duke scrubs, playing against the guys at the end of the bench. Duke Harris had 2 3-pointers in the final few minutes to pad his stats a little bit. When the game was actually being decided, other than one little run in the second half, Duke Harris was just not a factor. And if your defense is able to take the opposing team's best player out of the game, that's a big deal. It forces teams to play uncomfortable. And we got the big game against Louisville. We're going to talk about it later. We got the big game coming up against Louisville. Dame Sarr's ability to take the opposing team's best scoring wing. This game, it was Duke Harris. Against Louisville, it'll be Ryan Conwell. His ability to make that guy have a bad day is one of the reasons that Duke is 18-1, 17-1, 18-1, whatever our record is right now. It's really good. And that's one of the major reasons for it is the defense.
I think also when you have a team like, Wake that has a great player in Duke Harris, and we saw that glimpse in the second half where he kind of went on his own little run to try and get Wake Forest back into it. At that point, it was too late. And that's the point, right? You want it where if you take their best player that makes everything go and take them out of the game for 8, 10, 12 minutes, a half, like we did with Duke Harris, it disrupts everything that they do. And even when they go on this little mini run where they go, hey, I'm just going to, get back in this game, and if they take it upon themselves to kind of force the issue, it's too late because we've already built up a 20-point lead. And even if you cut it to 10, okay, now you're in foul, you get a couple fouls or something like that. You got to come out of the game, boop, back up to 20 again. And it's that sort of thing that we've seen in these games, right? And obviously, like you mentioned, we'll talk about Louisville, but even against Louisville in the second half, without Mikael Brown Jr., we said, Ryan Conwell, your night is done. And we took him out of the game. And so we've had a tendency against teams to find their best player. And even if it's a large stretch and not an entire half or an entire game, just the fact that you kind of render that part of the game, obsolete for the other team, it makes it where that team has to expend so much energy to try and not just get that player back into the game, but then to recalibrate their offense to get another shot at trying to take you out. And that is 2 times that you have to kind of expend too much energy. And that's where Duke has the advantage if they're able to just maintain what they're able to do.
Last thing I have in the good is I want to talk about Duke's ability to take care of the ball. Because we mentioned in the preview that Wake Forest is a really great team, like top 20 in the country at turnover percentage, at forcing teams into making turnovers, specifically at getting steals. And look, full prop, Wake had 7 steals in this game, but Duke only had 9 turnovers. Wake usually, on the season, Wake is averaging forcing teams into 15.5 turnovers per game. So for Duke to only have 9, Wake was way, way below what they usually have. And, I don't know that, our guards weren't like great in this game. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but Cephas, 0 turnovers. Isaiah, only 1 turnover. The guys who had, Nick Himeni only had 1 turnover. Guys who mostly had the ball in their hands were able to hang on to it. I mean, Dame had 2, Caden had 2. I can forgive that kind of stuff because Duke, for the most part, did not allow Wake to get easy shots to, off of steals and stuff like that. So much of Wake's game plan is to get you into scramble mode, and they failed to do that against Duke. And I just wanted to mention, good job by our guards making sure that didn't happen.
See, I would say good job to our big men, because if you think about the number of turnovers, the big men are the one that have kind of had the most over the last few games, and it's for good reason, right? They're the ones that end up with the ball in their hands at the end of possessions most of the time. Cam Boozer and Pat Gongba both have a turnover each when, they had been averaging like 3, sometimes 4 turnovers in games entering this over this past like 2 to 3 week stretch. So I'm really proud of them for taking care of the basketball as well, because it's a lot, as you know, it's a lot harder for a big man to take care of the basketball. They don't get the opportunity to kind of know what the defense is because they have their back to the basket a lot. And in the case of Cam Boozer, he's not just taking the ball and going and putting in the hoop. He's dribbling too. He's at the top of the key. He's trying to create stuff off the dribble. So the fact that he was able to limit himself to just 1 turnover, I think is great. And again, I'm sure Louisville was saying, hey, we're going to get our opportunities to take the ball away from these big guys who can do a lot of things on the floor. And the fact they weren't able to is just one more pin that they couldn't use to kind of pop the balloon that is Duke.
Maliq, Cam, and Big Pat combined for 11 assists and only 2 turnovers. And you're absolutely right. Duke was quite often, more often than not, Duke's offensive possessions started with us getting the ball to Maliq, Pat, or Cam at the very top, outside the 3-point line. Because those are the guys that are initiating offense. First of all, it clears out a little more space on the inside. But those are the guys that we're counting on to initiate our offense more so than our guards. It makes this team a little bit unique in terms of the way we attack opposing teams, and for opposing opposing big men, it's probably a little bit weird and unusual to be having to guard guys out there as much as they have to do against Duke. Donald, there's not a lot of bad, but I do want to get to the bad. And for me, I got to start with the shooting. Duke begins 0 for 9 from 3-point range. Now we rerouted that. We righted the ship, I meant to say, and went 7 of 16 the rest of the way. But starting out 0 for 9 is not good. And I just started looking at it on the season. Duke's hitting 34% from 3 on the season, 159th in college basketball. We're barely an average team 3-point shooting. We have only hit 40% of our threes, more than 40% of our threes in 4 games this year. Sorry, 4 games this year. We've hit better than 40% from 3. SMU, Florida State, Niagara, and Army. In this game, our guards and wings were 1 of 9 on 3-pointers. If you take out the power forwards and centers, Duke was just 3 of 16 on 3-pointers. Yeah, it's not a good number. We need to find a way to get a little bit better from out there. I don't know. Isaiah just 1 of 6, and they're mostly open. I mean, teams are aware that Duke's going inside, so we're getting open threes and are just again and again. I guess we just have to accept the fact they are what Duke is. What it is. We're going to be a 34-35% 3-point shooting team all season, I guess.
And that's factoring into the count that like a lot of times our first possession is a 3-pointer by like Pat or by Cam to get things started, to kind of pull the defense and let them know that, hey, you're going to be stretched to the corners of the half court every single time down the floor. But I'll also say that I think part of that is it wasn't necessarily a slow start, as you mentioned. I thought we played decently. We just weren't making shots, but we let Wake control things in the beginning. And that's a little bit different, again, than some of the slow starts that we've had so far this season. Now, I can attribute some of that to there being some lack of rhythm after not having a game midweek. But again, I think we needed the rest coming back from the West Coast. But if you recall against Stanford, we started out strong, right? We didn't make every shot, but we started out strong and we never looked back. This time around, it felt like Wake was controlling the issue, and it took a little bit for us to get our rhythm with regards to not just controlling the flow of the offense, but also just controlling the tempo of the game and how physical or everything else that it was going to be. This was our house, and we had not established that in the first 5 to 7 minutes of this game. Once we were able to, there was no looking back once we took the lead. But that was something that we need to, especially, again, we got a game in less than 36 hours. We're going to have to figure out a way to keep the rhythm going, but also establish the intensity that is required at the beginning of the game and make it that it's our intensity, our tempo, our house, our game, and not the opponent's.
Yeah, you mentioned Wake getting off early. They got a lot of open threes, and they hit a pretty fair number of them. Trevon Spillers hitting threes was not on anyone's dance card, not even Trevon Spillers. I literally in the preview said, "Oh, you can leave that guy alone out there. He's not gonna hit any threes," and he goes ahead and he hits 2 of them against us. I mean, it's just crazy. On the game, Wake made 14 3-pointers, Donald. That is tied for the most. Florida State also had 14. That's the most against Duke in any game this year. And the efficiency folks, the folks who plug the numbers into the computers, say this is actually one of Duke's worst defensive games of the season, believe it or not. I mean, we talked about how we put them in scramble mode and how Wake, didn't have a great game in terms of or Duke's defense was able to control Wake a little bit. But the bottom line is this was like, it wasn't as bad, I mentioned, as that 3-game stretch against Texas Tech, Georgia Tech, and Florida State. But it was kind of close. After against Cal and Stanford on the West Coast swing, Duke was great on defense again. But in this game, we took a step back. Like again, the efficiency numbers say that this was one of Duke's poorest games of the season. Now, I think a lot of that was just Wake being unusually hot and some guys hitting, like Omaha Billieu hit a 3, Trevon Spillers hit a couple, like guys hitting threes that just aren't. The scouting report says, yeah, let that guy shoot. He's not supposed to do that. But Wake hit those. And I think that's a lot of what it was. But, it's just, if we're being honest in the bad, Duke's 3-point defense was bad in this game.
And Wake took 10 more threes than they did twos. That's a huge disparity.
They couldn't get anything from 2. They were hitting they were shooting threes because they hit better than 40% from 3. They could hit barely 30% from 2.
Yeah. And so again, like they just kind of, and they also were down, right? So they were trying to catch up quickly. And when they were making threes, they were doing it. But yeah, I think there's going to be a few teams, and I know we're going to be talking about Louisville, who shoots more threes than anyone in the country. But, I don't think against us they shot 10 more threes than they did twos. So it's one of those things where that disparity was a little bit skewed by the fact that Wake Forest was hitting them They were also down 20 for large stretches of the second half, and they said we got to catch up somehow. Let's go with what's working right now. What's not working is the paint, because again, shout out to Duke, we were controlling the paint.
By the way, in the first Duke Louisville game, Louisville shot 38 threes and 27 twos, so they did shoot 10 more threes.
My bad.
Yeah, no problem. They didn't hit a good percentage of them, so that's fine. Hey, the last thing I had that I wanted to mention in the bad, both Caleb Foster, both Cephas and Dame Sarr committed 4 fouls in this game.
Yeah,
and it limited. Duke had to take, especially Dame, out. He only played 17 minutes in this game, the fewest he's played in a month. And it wasn't because he wasn't playing well. It was because he was very limited by fouls. Duke's got to clean up a little bit of the fouling on the perimeter. Especially we're about to play Maliq Brown Jr. He is going to draw fouls. Ryan Conwell is going to put the ball on the floor, try to get to the bucket, and going to try and draw fouls on you. So we got to be a little bit careful about that in this next game. You got anything else in the bad, or should we go to play of the game time?
No, let's go to play of the game. Can I go first? Because I have a good one.
Go for it. I've got 3 possibilities, so I want to see if you take one of them. Go for it.
Okay, so 5:15 in the first half. Maliq Brown hits a three-pointer. You're like, great, sounds cool. Goes down the other end of the floor, then gets the stand-up block on the other end. It's the only block we had in the game. He grabs it and just calmly hands it to, kind of passes it forward to Caleb Foster, and you could tell that he knew that this play was going to end in success because he didn't even move.
He didn't run. I love it.
He just passed it. And he was like, my job is done here.
Right.
Caleb Foster drives down the floor. He kind of goes into the lane, but then he hands it off, basically taps it off to Cam Boozer, who gets the hoop and the foul. I thought it was a great sequence, again, punctuated by Maliq Brown being demonstrative on both ends of the floor, hitting the 3 and then getting a block so good that he was like, I don't need to contribute to the rest of this play. My work here is done.
Yes, that was one of my 3 nominees. And by the way, you mentioned that Cam got the old-fashioned 3-point play. I think Cam had like 3 or 4 old-fashioned 3-point plays. And Duke, by the way, he was 7 of 7 at the free throw line. We should have mentioned in the good, Duke hit 21 out of 24 free throws in this game, 87.5%. Yeah, that's decent. We'll take it. Yeah. So I also wanted to mention there was it's not my play of the game, but at about 6:40 in the first half, Cameron Boozer took a pull-up off the dribble 3-pointer, almost like a step-back 3. And Isaiah Evans went in and grabbed the rebound for a slam. And I was like, that's the opposite of how isn't Isaiah? It's
not how that normally works. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Isn't Isaiah the one usually taking the sort of, off the dribble 3s and Cam's the one getting the slam rebounds? I just thought that was kind of funny that Duke reversed roles so much there. But my play of the game comes with 8:50 left in this contest. There was a sequence that demonstrated everything that Duke did well in this game and the one thing Duke didn't do well. It started with Maliq. It wasn't a block shot. It's like a deflection steal or whatever, but it looked like Wake was about to get a fairly easy drive to the basket and Maliq completely foiled it. And Duke then rushed the other way and Isaiah took a wide open 3 that he missed. That's the thing that Duke didn't do well in this game. He missed the wide open 3. Caden Boozer grabbed the rebound and he found Isaiah again, and Isaiah drove to the basket and which by the way, Duke did driving to the basket really well in this game. And Isaiah finished with a really acrobatic, 360 swing the ball around kind of finish. It was just, there was a lot it was a lot of highlight looking kind of stuff on that play. And so that was my play of the game, starting again with Maliq getting the deflection block, whatever you want to call it, and ending with Isaiah with a very, very acrobatic finish. We also have to do player of the week, Donald.
Oh, yeah, but real quick, because you mentioned the word deflections and we didn't mention this in the good. As you said, you kind of mentioned it with Maliq Brown, but just overall, I thought it was very funny that we had several deflections where the guys would deflect the ball and it's not like they were, lazy and not going after the ball, but they almost were like, nope, that was dumb, Wake Forest. Try that again. No, you could do better than that. Like they were just kind of just sunning them around the floor with the deflections. And sometimes there was one where Caleb Foster had a deflection and it was easily in a spot where he can go get it. And he just kind of stared at his opponent like, no, you go get that. And you try this play again. See if it's better next time around. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, now I'm going to steal the ball. We're going to go the other way. So we had a lot of those kind of plays in the game.
All right, before we get to a break, we have to do player of the week. We only have one game to consider, Donald. Who you taking? Because there's an obvious choice and there's a less obvious choice.
I didn't consider anyone but Cam Boozer. Cam Boozer, as I mentioned, had 32 points in this game, 22 in the second half. He was 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and it still wasn't his best game. I'm going with Cam.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious choice, and I do not blame you at all for taking it. I'm going to go off the board a little bit. I'm going to take Maliq Brown.
That's cool, too.
Yeah. Only 5 points, but 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Maliq was the guy who opened the three-point shooting for Duke after Duke could not hit a three for the life of us. And I just thought, we've talked about the deflections and things. Again, I'm begging you, Duke, please put out Maliq's season-long deflection numbers. I need to see it on a game-by-game basis, please. Because if he didn't have 10 in this game, he had 9. He was everywhere with those octopus arms, and I really felt like he had an outstanding. He plays 25 minutes in this game. You know, Big Pat was limited because we couldn't have both of them in there at the same time, and Maliq was just too damn valuable in this contest. He's just a huge key part of Duke dominating on the boards in this game. So it's easy to pick Cam. I don't blame you for picking Cam, but I wanted to give Maliq his flowers. We're going to take a quick break.
Very quickly. Cam Boozer. I mean, he swept all the awards last week: the ACC Rookie of the Week and Player of the Week.
Yeah.
He's getting the way that this is going. I'm not saying that he's going to catch Cooper, but it's going to be very close with regards to number of players of the week and number of rookies of the week. I know it's the Rookie of the Week is unofficially the Cooper Flag Award for how many times he won it. We're going to get very close with Cam Boozer.
I think Cam's not going to win it this way because he only had one game. There's going to be someone else. Although I looked a little bit across the ACC, the other sort of star freshman in the ACC didn't have great weeks. So maybe Cam gets it by only playing one game. We will have to see when the ACC announces that. All right, like I said, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, not going to spend a lot of time on it. Not going to do our usual deep dive. But we got to preview Louisville coming to Cameron on Monday. We'll have that in just a moment.
They always tell you there's a catch, a compromise, an asterisk. Terms apply. See store for details. Maybe less than advertised. May vary by mood. Probably. Sprite Zero Sugar? It's different. It's the lemon lime flavored refreshment you want with zero sugar. So, no fast voice? No caveats. Just refreshment. This is Sprite Zero Sugar. Obey your thirst.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Support for Fans First Sports Network comes from Big Fork Brands, bringing bold bacon sausage, paleo pork jerky, and Chicago-style sauces to your table. Enjoy rich, smoky flavors made with sustainable ingredients and chef-crafted care. Big Fork uses 100% heritage hogs raised outdoors without antibiotics and has been featured by Food and Wine, the Chicago Tribune, and QVC for their bold flavors. Listeners visit bigforkbrands.com and receive 20% off at checkout using promo code FFSN. Bigforkbrands.com, promo code FFSN. Thank you for your support of this show.
Donald, we're back from the break, and we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but we want to preview Duke's contest on Monday, Big Monday, against the Louisville Cardinal, a team that is very, very different from the Louisville team that Duke played just a few days ago, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll talk about it very soon, but the return of Mikael Brown Jr. to the lineup yesterday is the big story here, and the fact that he, with him being back in the lineup, he'll obviously play on Monday. But Jason, let's first talk about how the Louisville Cardinals have done since we last played them on June 6th. Overall, they're 14-5, 4-3 in the ACC, and we were kind of the end of their little rut that they had. Since we've played them, they are 3-1. They beat Boston College by 13. They destroyed Pitt by 41. We may have to talk about Pitt down the line, Jason, because it's not been great for them. No. And they beat Virginia Tech on Saturday by 14. Their only loss coming back on January 13th since we lost to them, and that was to UVA by 9. Still a quad 1 game, 17th in the net. They're ranked 23rd in the AP, 21st in the coaches. All of the, Bart Torviks and Ken Palms and everything have them between 16 or 15 and 19. And I think the one thing is, Jason, Louisville so far this season, and this is a team that everyone considered to be the second or third best team in the ACC. It was going to be us, Louisville, UNC. So far this year, Louisville is 3-5 against quad 1 teams. They're 11-0 against everyone else. That's been their big Achilles heel, is that against the big teams and the big games, they just haven't found a way to get it done. And sure, a lot of that is attributed to the fact that they were without Mikael Brown Jr. for a few weeks. But if you think about it, again, the team that was slated to be the second best in the ACC this season, we have a chance to go 4 games up in the conference on them with a win on Monday night. So I'm looking to see how this team responds. But as we we'll discuss, this is a much different team than we saw back on January 6th because of the fact that Mikael Brown Jr. is back in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no reason to sort of go into all the advanced metrics and all the players and the such the way we usually do, because we've already played this team. It was fairly recently. You cannot even talk about how different Louisville is when they have Mikael Brown Jr. I mean, first of all, he's a point guard. The ball's in his hands in a way that no one else on Louisville was able to duplicate. And we saw it in this game against Virginia Tech. I watched the game that they played just the other day, just yesterday. Mikael Brown plays 28 minutes. He leads the team in assists with 6 assists. He led the team in scoring with 20 points. That's a pretty good Virginia Tech team. It's a Virginia Tech team that has their eye at least on the NCAA tournament bubble, and Louisville handled them with ease. Louisville pulled away in the second half of the first half, I should say, and it really it was never really much of a contest at all in the second half. Mikael Brown Jr. is an outstanding player. He's going to get to the bucket against you. He's going to create opportunities for his teammates. I mentioned before we played Louisville last time, when we didn't know, we were unsure if he was going to play or not. And I was talking about the fact that Mikael Brown Jr. was shooting very, very poorly from 3-point range. He was down like around 25% on his threes on the year. And I said, I've seen this guy shoot. We saw this guy play for Team USA, in the FIBA under 19, where he hit like close to 50% of his 3-pointers. He is a really, really good 3-point shooter. And I was like, when he comes back from injury, he's going to start torching. He's not going to be a 25% 3-point shooter on the season. I was like, he's going to torch some teams. I just hope it's not Duke. Well, he was 3 of 6 on 3-pointers against Virginia Tech. That's 50%. Duke needs to be real, real careful. There is absolutely a world where Mikael Brown Jr. just does like a 5 of 8 from 3 against you. He's capable of that kind of thing. And you're like, oh crap. Because if you try to stop him too much from 3, he will go around you, get in the lane, and create all kinds of problems. This guy is a special, special player. He's been injured for like a month, and he's still like number 4, number 5, number 6 on NBA draft boards. He's going to probably be, him or Kingston Flemings will be the first point guards off the board for the NBA. Guy's really, really special player. And I'm actually I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm glad Duke's getting Louisville's best shot. I'm glad that we're going to get Mikael Brown Jr. and get to see a player of that quality. It's going to be a real challenge for the Duke defense. Dame Sarr we saw it in the first game against Louisville. He is tasked with Ryan Conwell, who's Louisville's leading scorer. But we're going to see Caleb Foster, who to some extent is sort of the forgotten defensive star, because we've got Maliq Brown, we've got Dame Sarr, Caleb Foster's like the third best defender on this Duke team. He's the best third best defender on any team in the country. And he's going to have the job. It's going to be a tough job against Maliq Brown Jr. I'm really looking forward to seeing this happening. And even if it is a way tougher game than people expect, look, we're playing in Cameron. I want to see Duke get this kind of test. It arguably, Duke playing Louisville with Maliq Brown Jr. is the second toughest test left on our schedule, other than the neutral game we're going to play against Michigan. Other than Michigan, I still think, I know Virginia's really good. I know Carolina's. I think Louisville with Maliq Brown Jr. is the second best team that Duke has left on the schedule.
And I think the one thing about it is, like you mentioned, against Louisville a few weeks ago, we didn't have Maliq Brown Jr., so those rotations were kind of set, right? You could put Dame on Ryan Conwell in the second half and go, that's your job. Don't worry about anything else. And we could kind of rotate everybody else. Now, with it being a two-headed monster, you kind of have to lock down those two guys very quickly. And sure, Dame Sarr might be called to go back on Ryan Conwell again, or Jason, we might start him on Maliq Brown Jr. just to see how it works, right? But at the end, you have two guys you kind of have to limit, because if you take the ball out of Maliq Brown Jr.'s hands, you still have Ryan Conwell. And oh yes, lest we not forget the first half where a bunch of guys who never make threes ended up hitting a lot of threes, like an Ali Khalifa type of situation. You don't want to recreate that and put pressure on your offense to have to score every possession down the floor. Again, when Wake Forest was hitting shots, we didn't feel like we were in control. It took a little bit for us to gain control of the game and then flip it on its head. We want to do that from the outset. And so I think intensity in this game is going to be key. Like you mentioned, this is one of the best teams we have remaining in our schedule. We have to play like it. We have to play like this is a tournament game. Sure, it's in Cameron, but we got to play like this is a game in the, semifinal or final of the ACC tournament, like it's in the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 of the NCAA tournament. That's the kind of team that we're facing here. We need to keep that energy and that intensity up. And remember the second half at the Yum Center and how we were able to lock down defensively and really assert ourselves in the paint offensively. We need to continue to do that sort of thing. The last thing I'll say, Jason, is Maliq Brown Jr. is a new piece to this puzzle, at least for us. So we have to limit the damage of that new piece. And that's easier said than done. He can go for 20 points and you can feel like you've limited what he can do because, as you mentioned, he can drive, he can shoot, he can pass. If you're able to disrupt the system that is formed around him, that is going to help Duke be successful. And, I think what the metrics say, it's like a 9-point difference is what KenPom has. I expect it to be way closer. I expect this to be a game coming down to the last couple of minutes where execution on the offensive end and pressure on defense is going to be the difference in how we approach Louisville.
The other thing I will note is, of course, that first game we played against Louisville in the Yum Center shall forever be the Caleb Foster game. I mean, what Cephas did in the second half of that game, as a reminder, he gets 20 points on 9 of 11 two-point field goals. He took the Louisville guards into the lane again and again and again, and they had no answer. He's going to be trying to do that against Maliq Brown Jr., who is an elite uber athlete. 6'5", only 190. So Cephas will have a little bit of weight on him, but Maliq Brown Jr. has long arms. He's a very good defender. It's going to be very interesting to see, what is Cephas able to do? Because, by the way, I thought Cephas, we didn't really mention it, the game against Wake Forest. Cephas did a very nice job, I thought, of taking the ball to the goal. And a lot of it was in transition and the such, but he was able to overpower the Wake Forest guards in a way that he hasn't really been lately. He had that great game against Louisville. Then he kind of went into hibernation for a few games. He came out of it a little bit against Wake. We need complementary guys against Louisville. But it's going to be a challenge for Cephas to do the same kind of thing. There's no way he's going to do the same kind of thing he did in that first game, A, because Maliq Brown is better, and B, because I think that was a little bit of an outlier from Cephas.
I think the last thing, Jason, is that this game is on the home floor, right? It's in Cameron. And there's an extra special attention to Louisville wanting to right the ship, but also to do it at the expense of winning it, of us not keeping our perfect record in Cameron. This is where energy needs to be coming from all 93-14 that are there on Monday night. I think that's the key as well. Something that the Yum Center doesn't quite have, despite its status as one of the biggest gyms in college basketball. It doesn't have the pressure coming from all four sides. And I think that's where hopefully the Cameron Crazies will be ready to go. I'm sure they will be. But that intensity is going to be the difference. We need to have that from the opening tip. We didn't have that against Louisville the first time. We need to have it this time around, because that way we don't have to waste our energy trying to catch up. We can use our energy to put Louisville away.
Hey, last thing before we go. I just got to shout out a beloved Dookie who has moved on to other places and has had a really good week. Let's just put it this way. So Christian Reeves, folks, y'all remember Christian Reeves. Christian Reeves is now at the, where's he playing for?
College of Charleston.
College of Charleston. Yes, that's right. I knew that. Playing for the College of Charleston. In his first game this week against the Campbell Camels, best nickname in the sport. The Campbell Camels, he had 21 points and 9 rebounds. That's a pretty good game. That's very impressive. 21 and 9. He followed it up this weekend. They played Elon. 29 and 18. My boy Christian went for 29 points and 18 rebounds in one game. That's like his career at Duke. I haven't looked at the numbers. I'd be willing to bet you he didn't have 29 and 18 in his 2 years that he was a Blue Devil. I need to look that up to see for sure. But my goodness, what a week Christian Reeves had. A total of 50 points and 27 rebounds, 3 block shots, by the way, for Christian Reeves as his team gets a pair of wins, close wins. They won one game by 4, the other game by 10. Christian Reeves, the difference maker for College of Charleston. Congrats, my friend. That's a really nice job.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And you know, we really like to see these guys do well, even if they leave Duke. We talked about how well Jalen Blakes did at Stanford last year, notably except against us, right? We kind of had to shut him down, but it was all love there. But yeah, it's good to see these guys knowing that, hey, I'm not getting the opportunities that I would like, and to find a place where they're able to go. And he's had a couple stops, right? Because last year he was at Clemson, didn't get the kind of run that he wanted, and now he's at College of Charleston. Hey, that's going to help College of Charleston. If you got a guy going for 20 and 10, that's cool. But he's going for 29 and 18. Like, that's going to be what College of Charleston is going to want in those postseason tournaments as they try to qualify for the NCAA. And hopefully they get there on the back of Christian Reeves. It's good to see him doing so well.
Okay, so I went ahead and looked it up. Like you said, he had 29 and 18 against Elon. In his Duke career, Christian Reeves had 25 total points and 18 total rebounds. So he was better in one game.
Very close.
Very close. It's very close, yeah. But yeah, he basically had 2 seasons worth of production for College of Charleston. Congrats to Christian Reeves. By the way, I also wanted to shout out congrats to Mark Mitchell, who is still playing for Missouri. Had the game-winning 3-pointer for Missouri just the other day. He's having a really good season for the Missouri Tigers. Former Dukies, guys all over the place, playing really well. You know, we love you, even if you leave us, as long as you leave us in the right kind of condition. Right, Darian Mensah?
Took it there.
Yeah, I went there. Yes, I did. We're not going to have another hour talking about Darian Mensah, at least not today. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. Donald and I'll be back with you after Duke plays Louisville. Big game for the Blue Devils. Donald, by the way, I looked at Duke's schedule. So we have played 8 quad 1 games so far in the season. We're 7-1 in quad 1 games. That's big.
9. We've played 9. We're at 8-1 according to
Oh, there must be one.
According to the net, we are 8-1 in quad 1 games.
Okay.
We're best in the country.
Good. Yes, we are best in the country by a fairly wide margin. Because I don't think there's anyone else who has more than 5 or 6 quad 1 wins. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I looked at Duke's schedule. We have 12 games left before the ACC tournament. At the moment, I'm almost sure that 8 of our 12 remaining games will be quad 1 games, starting with this Louisville game. I mean, like, wow. Duke's, as tough as Duke's schedule has been so far, it is going to be really, really tough down the stretch. I'm glad we've got a game in hand on Clemson and 2 games on Virginia and three games on Carolina and Louisville, because there's some tough games coming up for Duke.
I'll repeat what I've said often on this show. This is exactly what we asked for. So let's go out and get it.
I like it. That works for me. All right. With that, we're all done here on the latest edition of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Don't forget, after that Louisville game is over, hit us up with those headlines. Send it to us at dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Like and subscribe. It's been a little while since we went ahead. Donald, we need to look at our reviews and stuff like that. Every so often we do a little shout out for the reviews people give us on Spotify and Apple and all the other kind of places. We should do that at some point. That's a good off-season activity, I think.
Yes. A lot of stuff going on in the on-season.
So. Right, exactly. All right. He's Donald. I'm Jason. We hope you are surviving the snow and the ice. This is the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.